Hello, everyone. It's Natalie here. I'm happy to be here today to share on how to discover the key factors to helping your child with their own emotional triggers. What can we do so that our child doesn't escalate in when they're having tantrums, when they're having meltdowns, or whatever the case may be? So what can you do as a parent to attend to them in a way that will help them calm down, which is, I'm sure that all of you are interested in that as parents. We have busy lives, and when our children are being triggered and they are experiencing strong emotions, it's difficult once they are in it to actually help them. And often then we don't know what to do. So this is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. I'm going to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Natalie, and I'm an emotional transformation coach, helping you parents manage your triggers, your own emotions, because at the end of the day, that is very important. So you can be with your children's emotions and you can attend to them when they're triggered. So I will delve right into it. If this is something that you know you need help with and you've tried many things and it hasn't worked, feel free to reach out to me. I have a program that really addresses the root causes of triggers, of your children's triggers, and so on, that can effectively help you. So feel free to reach out if you know you need that help. So let's talk about this. When our child is having emotional triggers, there's something going on in the brain. And I'm going to share with you a little bit of the hand model for the brain, so you can see what your brain looks like. Well, everybody's brain looks the same, for that matter. So your child's brain, what it looks like as well, and what is happening as soon as there is a trigger. So here's the hand model. At the base of the brain here, where my wrist is the spinal cord. And then there is the brain stem. And if I fold my thumb, that's the limbic system of the brain. And that's where we experience emotions. And then there's the reptilian brain over there that has to do with regulating the body, with sleep, with digestion, with going to the bathroom, and so on. And then we have the cortex. So if I fold my fingers, this whole thing is the cortex. And right in the front is the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex develops over time. And it's not fully developed until somebody is about 25, 26 years old. When we are in our mid-20s, that's when the prefrontal cortex has fully developed. And that's why it's important for us as parents to model and to help our children to regulate, because through that process, then we help them regulate their emotions, because the cortex and the prefrontal cortex is about regulation, being able to understand things, think logically about something, and also regulating our emotions, our triggers, right? So this gets developed over time, because children are born dysregulated. They're not born knowing how to regulate, just like our children are not born knowing how to read, how to walk. They have to learn that. And so learning about regulating ourselves is a process that our children needs help with. And so for us as adults, it's important that we also know how to regulate our own emotions, how to know when we're triggered. So everything that I'm going to share with you today, not only is going to help you with your children, but it's also going to help you manage your own triggers and knowing what are those factors you need to be really aware of so you can attend to your own triggers and emotions and not getting pulled into the rabbit hole, right? So that's the hand model. And it's important to understand that, because once our children are triggered or we are triggered, what happens is the prefrontal cortex is no longer integrated, right? So Dr. Dan Siegel, who designed this hand model, he explained this as a lid has been flipped. So this is my lid when it's all integrated, and here is the lid being flipped in that moment. And when the lid is flipped, all our emotions are being exposed. And that's where we feel this overwhelming emotions happening in our bodies. And in those moments, we can't think clearly. We can't think logically, and words don't really help. And it's not helpful to reason with our children, to talk to them in a way that sounds very logical, because once the lid is flipped, the emotions have taken over, and there's no ability within the brain now to absorb what's being said or to understand even what's being said if we're trying to explain something to our children in those moments. And that's why if you've tried that in the past with your child when they are very triggered and a lot of emotions are being expressed, and we'll say, calm down, or, and we're trying to explain to them what's going on, it actually makes things worse. It escalates. Not that you're doing anything wrong, but it's not helpful in those moments because the brain cannot think in those moments. And you know yourself as a parent, as an adult, how do you feel when you are triggered? Yeah. And if somebody comes to you and try to explain some things to you and try to reason with you, try to share their perspective with you, how do you feel and how do you respond, right? Usually you don't respond well to that, and it aggravates things for us if somebody does that. So don't take it personally, and know that in those moments of trigger, this is what's happening. The emotional brain, the limbic brain has taken over, and no words, no explanation can get in, and it will not make sense, and it's not going to be welcome. So when a child is upset, they can't think, words definitely don't help. Words on their own don't help. You can say some words, but not overloading with words, but there's something else that needs to be done. And I can share that in a little bit with you. So once we are triggered, once our children are triggered for whatever reason, the nervous system starts to get activated. And we know, and you probably know, that the nervous system has to do with our reactions. Either we fight, we flight, we take flight, we want to run away, or we freeze in the moments. Because in those moments of triggers, the brain is registering that something is threatening. It's not safe right now. So I either have to run away from it, or I have to fight back, or I'm going to stay still and freeze in the moment to protect myself. So what is it then that can be very effective? Is that we have a body and we have a mind, right? So our body is going to signal to us as soon as there's a trigger. And a trigger, there can be a thought, or we see something happening and we're putting a meaning to it. And this is happening subconsciously. And that's why when I work with a client who want to address their emotional reactions, I address what's going on in the subconscious mind, because we're not aware in the moment of what is happening subconsciously, what meaning we're putting to something. And it's a very habitual meaning that we're putting to it. And accessing that information in the subconscious then helps us to understand how we are processing things, how we're viewing things, how we're taking things. But in the moment of a trigger, we're not even aware of what's happening in the subconscious mind, but our body will give us some signals. And that's where it's very important with your child is to notice what is it that you see, what you hear, what you feel, and what do you know in those moments, right? So first of all, I'm going to ask you to take a moment and remember the last time you were triggered. Maybe it's with your kids or your partner or a stranger. You were upset. Can you recall how that felt in your body? If you can, great. But if you can't, no worries. A lot of people don't know, but maybe you know. So I just want to ask that question. Because our body gives us those signals. The body knows. And a child may not have vocabulary, but a child's body will also express. Yeah. So in those moments of trigger, what you may see happening in their physical body, they're going to give you the early signs. And if you can catch those early signs, then you can prevent a storm from happening. If you catch the signs before the storm, that's an opportunity to then attend to your children. So what are those signs? The physiological signs that happen in the body. There may be a change in their facial expression. You can see expression of anger, frustration, fear, or sadness as soon as you look at them. You may see their body tensing up. The muscles become tighter, rigid, and stiff because the muscles are getting ready to either fight, flight, or freeze in this moment. Increased heart rate. You may notice that the heartbeat is becoming faster, right? And if you put your hand on their heart, it will reveal that, yes, their heartbeat is getting faster and faster, and something is going on. You may also see changes in their breathing. Yeah. So a lot of times when we're triggered, we tend to shallow breathe, right? The breath doesn't get down all the way into the belly. Yeah. And some children may start to hyperventilate as well. So you see these really quick, shallow breath. Or some children may even hold their breath if they're going into freeze mode, right? They're holding their breath, bracing themselves. And so those are signs. There's been a shift for our child and something is going on for them. And the body is showing the signs. You may see them clenching their fists, getting ready to fight, right? Or they may fidget. They can't find a proper position, right? They may do repetitive movements like tapping their feet, or their hands, or their hand on the table. They may be pacing back and forth in the room, or just bouncing. Those are signs that our children, their body are expressing that there's something going on that's not feeling good right now. They're feeling it in the body, and know that emotions are felt in the body. It's not in the brain. It's not something they think about. It's happening right here, right now, in the body, in this very moment. And often they don't know what to do with that. They don't know what that is about, even. Another thing is complexion, facial complexion, the pale complexion or flush, like if their cheeks are turning red, maybe they're feeling some shame right now. Or if they are like really pale, maybe they're really scared in this moment. It's a verse, again, that's telling us something. Sweating or trembling, a child may show signs of like really perspiring if, they are really scared, or they may be trembling if something is happening again that they don't know what to do in those moments. So again, paying attention when those changes are happening. Some children may just shut down completely, right? They disconnect, they go really silent, they daydream. And often that's showing us the freeze mode because they don't know what else to do, right? They don't feel like they can fight back. A child who wants to fight back can become very aggressive, very defensive, and voicing or screaming, that's fighting. Or another child may want to take flight. They want to run away. They want to hide. That's, wanting to remove themselves from the situation that they're perceiving threatening in the moment. So it's very important to note these physical signs, and they can vary depending on the intensity of the trigger and also on the child's responses. So, but knowing your own children's signs can be very helpful and very important, because when you recognize those signs in their physiology happening, then you know that there's something happening for them. And if we don't want this to escalate and become a bigger problem, attending to those earlier signs is important. And that goes for us as well, is when we recognize those changes in our bodies, that we actually take some time and pause and ask ourselves, okay, what's going on right now? What is it that I need right now? Right? So these signs can provide very insightful information about our child's emotional state, and to help us determine the appropriate support we need to give them in those moments. But also very important that if we're seeing these signs, it's very helpful to connect with our own emotional state so that we feel like we can be grounded with our child when they're starting to get dysregulated. Maybe they're not full blown dysregulated, but when they're starting, that we are also in a good place to be present with them, and that we're not going to dysregulate ourselves, because putting a dysregulated child and a dysregulated adult, it's like putting two children together, and there's no positive outcome that happens with that. So other earlier sign that we have that our children give us is maybe they're expressing it with words. So hear their expression. So maybe you see physiologically what's changing in their body, but also you may hear it as well. And so the words that are being used, maybe there's complaining, there's whining, there are words indicating their frustration. So you may hear things like, I don't want to do this. You always blah, blah, blah. Why do I need to do this? I want to, like, really firmly, right? I hate this. So that can be going on with you as they're expressing that, or maybe with another person. But those words that are being used are an indication that they're expressing that something is not sitting well with them. And notice the tone they're using when they're expressing that. They may use a high-pitched tone. They may start to raise their own voices. They may scream, they may yell, or they may use a whining kind of voice when they're expressing. So all of that is actually early signs that there's something going on with them. They're triggered about something we've said or done, or that their friends have said or done, or something that's been boiling inside of them for a while, and now it's becoming too much for them. And know that younger children will make sounds more so to express how they feel. They may stamp their feet, right? You may hear that. They may bang the table, or using a pen and banging the pen, punching the walls, or kicking. So all these signs are, again, an indication that, okay, my child needs help right now. They're starting to get dysregulated. And if I leave it, something bigger may start to happen, right? So I know with my younger sons, when he was around like toddler years, he usually does this when he's angry. And so when I was hearing these noises coming from him, that was an indication he's not happy. He's angry at somebody, he's angry at something. And so he's asking for help in these moments, because that's everything that the body is expressing are messages to us at the end of the day. So our own body express messages, our children's bodies will express their messages. And it's our role as parents to attune to our children when they are expressing those physiological noise, sound, expressions. It's important because that's their way of communicating with us. Because maybe they don't have the language, or they don't know how to vocalize what they're feeling, or they just simply don't know what to do in those moments. So another thing to become really aware of, it's a power that we all have, but often we've learned to disconnect from that power, is our gut feelings. Our gut feelings are always right 99.9% of the time. Yeah. So we have motherly instinct, fatherly instincts in us as parents, and we often get a hunch when there's something that doesn't feel right. And if we ignore it, often we would, in hindsight, say, oh, yeah, I did get this message. I did get this feeling, but I didn't act on it then because I didn't think it was a big deal or something along the way, right? So how many of you have experienced that? I know I have, and regretted that I didn't attend to it in those moments. So when something feels off, even the tiny little thing about your child that you can sense there's something going on, know that it's always the case. You are right. There's something going on. Don't ignore it. Because when we ignore it, then that's the situation can get aggravated for our child. But our gut feelings as a parent is guiding us. It's guiding us to attune to our children. That's how nature helped us to attune to our children. So often we've learned to ask somebody, what should I be doing? What decisions should I take? What choices should I make when this is going on with my child or with anything else in your life? But know that others can always just give you their own perspective based on their own experiences. And you know what's going on for you. you know what's going on with your child, because you're the person who the most connected to your child. So if you can attune to your gut feelings, that will help you know what is it that your child is needing in this moment. So what may be going on with your child when they're triggered. So definitely don't ignore it. And that's something that you feel in your body as well. So how many of us have had these hunches and not acted upon it? Ask yourself this question, and you'll get to know that, yes, I knew about it. I could sense it. And if I just had acted upon it, then that would have helped me, right? So I'll give you a very quick example. Years ago, when my youngest was still fairly young, we met a couple who has children too, and they invited us over to their house. So we don't know them really well. And we had dinner and we were talking, and as usual, as parents, we talk a lot. And my oldest one came to me and said, "Mom, I think we should go." And I said, "Well, just give me like half an hour and then we'll go." So half an hour has passed, and you know how that goes. And we're still talking. And he comes back and say, "I think, I want to go. It's time to go." And I didn't listen. And literally what happened is my youngest, as I picked him up, he came to me. He just threw up. He threw up on me. He threw up all over the floor. I was in such a shock, and I was also very embarrassed. I can admit that today, that, I don't really know this couple. We've just met. They've invited us over, and that's our first get together. And this is what happened. And so in hindsight, looking back, I knew my oldest one could sense something was going on with his brother. So it wasn't actually coming from me, my own gut feelings, but coming from my older child. And if I had just listened to those insights that were coming to me, maybe we could have prevented the situation like that, because obviously the younger one wasn't feeling well. So these are the things that maybe you can relate to, that you've experienced in other forms and situations, that has to do with your own gut feelings, knowing that when something is wrong, something is wrong. So you know that it's the time to help, to attend, recognizing the physiological changes, be it how they are acting, how there's the changes in the body, the noise, the sound they're making, the words they're using, your own gut feelings telling you that something is going on. And so that's the time. Those are the earliest sign that our own bodies are giving us, our children's bodies. And when we see that, and if we are getting that gut feelings that, yes, I need to attend to my child right now, that's the window of time to do it. Because if we don't, that's when it can lead to a full meltdown, tantrums, more aggressiveness, or the child running away and we don't know where they are. And then this becomes, a much bigger problem at the end of the day. But the signs, the body's signs are always there. That's a given. So what I will invite you to do perhaps is maybe for yourself, noticing what goes on with you when you start to get upset, starts to pay attention to that. This is something I teach all my clients to do, is it's questioning when these things happen that you don't like, what goes on in your body? And see if you can maybe see some of those signs that you recognize within yourself. So I'm going to end with how do you help your child in those moments? Like if you are catching those earlier signs, like I mentioned at the beginning, when the lid is flipped, when the emotional limbic brain has taken over, words only will not be effective. Reasoning, not effective. Logic, not effective. Sharing your perspective, not effective. What's effective is connecting to our child through their senses. So making eye contact, your own tone of voice, through touch, is very, very effective. So not if you want to say, okay, I'm right here, but you're not telling a whole story about it. And as you're saying that, rubbing their back, giving them a hug, if they let you, if not, just touching their shoulder, their back, their head, whatever they allow you, but connect with the child through the senses first and let them feel your presence, and your presence that's grounded and calm. Because if you are upset yourself and you're getting angry, if you're scared, your child will sense it without you even saying a word. And if that happens, the child's nervous system is not going to calm down. It's actually going to heighten more. The threat is going to go up more if you are not feeling grounded yourself, because our children look up to us to help them. And if they look up to us and we are not regulated, we're not grounded, we're not going to be able to provide that sense of safety for them. That sense of it's going to be okay. It's going to pass, whatever you're feeling right now in your body. So very, very important that we can ground ourselves, we can regulate our own emotions, and we can be present with things that are triggering us and knowing what to do. Yeah. Afterwards, when our child is calm, then we can teach them. Yeah. So teach them to name the feelings that were coming up. Maybe it was, if they were scared, there was a lot of fear. We can help them to name that emotion. I was scared. Yeah. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was resentful. I was really sad. I felt alone. So during the early signs, or even when the child is fully triggered, is not a time to do this. This has to be done prior to, or I would say let's do it right after a trigger has happened for your child. So it can be a teaching moment. So it may not be right away. It can be a few hours down. It can be the next day, but you will bring it back to the situation that happened early on and then help them to name those emotions that were present for them. Another way is to use the traffic lights analogy, which is really good for younger children. Green light means I'm calm, everything is well. Yellow light is I'm feeling that my lid is about to flip, and maybe I need to go tell mom I'm feeling yellow right now, and that will be their way of communicating how they're feeling. Or I'm red, I'm in the red zone right now, and I really need help. Okay, so traffic analogy, you can use the hand brain model that Dr. Dan Siegel has shared with all of us. And it's a very effective way and easy way for our own children to understand the different parts of their brain and what goes on when they're feeling with strong emotions, when they're getting upset, right? And that will help them communicate how they're feeling. So all these are examples, but at the end of the day is knowing those physiological changes that are happening in our children, make sure we attend to them and make sure that we are in a place to be able to attend to them. And then use those situations as teaching moments. As our children go through those situations, then we can teach them what to do next time, how they can communicate, how they're feeling next time. Yeah. And then that's how they learn the emotional regulation that, it's ongoing until they become adults, until also the prefrontal cortex has fully developed and they can do it on their own. But while it's developing, they need our help. They need the mature development of our own brain to help them with their immature brain. So hopefully this was helpful. If you need help with your triggers and you know that you've been reacting in ways that you don't like, but you're not intending it. You don't intend it, but it's happening nonetheless. And no matter what you've tried, you still find yourself reacting strongly on a regular basis, more than you would like. And so know there's a solution to that. And I've shared early on, I use modalities that really helps to get to the subconscious mind that we are not aware of what's happening in these moments of trigger, but working with that subconscious mind really allows us to understand the root causes, to reframe meanings that we've put to certain things and certain circumstances that we didn't really understand when we were younger, and also to rewire the brain and to rewire new beliefs that can help us as parents to parent with calm, to parent with connection, and to also be able to help our children as well develop their ability to attend and to communicate to us. So reach out to me and feel free to do so, and know that you don't have to keep living in a way that feels so frustrating to you, and also knowing that that it doesn't promote any deep connection with your children when those circumstances happen. So I'm going to stop here. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. If you're new to the community, thank you for joining my community. If you know a parent that can benefit from the information that I'm sharing with you today, feel free to share my video or to ask them or invite them to join my Facebook group, Raising Happy Kids with Calm Parenting Solutions. Thank you, everyone, and take care. Sending you much love.